Well, I'm new to this. I'm a little scared of it, and I'm afraid of it because I'm not sure if I manifested my son's brain tumor, and I'm scared because I used to focus on health all the time. I wasn't afraid of health, but I focused a lot on it.
We want to start at a really important place. First of all, you did not create that. It was, however, an agreement that both of you had coming in. And the reason is because you wanted early on to understand the value of contrast. You wanted to understand how when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. You wanted to understand the value and the power of focusing. That's what you wanted. Oh, there's so much fun to be had. Yeah?
Yes. So my neighbor's daughter was killed at the age of 10.
Yeah.
She was hit by a car, and she focused on safety a lot. But so did she have a contract as well?
These agreements are really, really common. In fact, you come in clusters. You see, because people come into physical environment and they pick up beliefs along the trail that don't serve them. And so often when you decide that you're going to make another entry into physical life experience, you come intending to have experiences that cause desire to be born early on that takes you past those old beliefs. And so there are a lot of things that people have believed that have been very hindering, that over generational experience you come to not believe so much. And so that is always something that is taking place. But we do want to address what you're talking about because it's inherent in both questions that you have presented to us. And we want you to not only feel the relief of moving up the emotional scale, we want you to move into a feeling of complete satisfaction and understanding about this. It's time for you to do that. It's something that you've wanted for a long time. And we think you're in the perfect place vibrationally to get this. So we're just going to take a little bit of time here until you find that ease. All right? Mm-hmm. What you're really talking about, because you create your own reality, because no one else can vibrate for you. And the reality that you create is about what's in your vortex and to what degree you allow what's in your vortex to be. So it gets a little dicey with humans because when we say to you that you have agreements coming in, and we mean things that you put into your vortex even before you get here, and then someone has an experience that nobody wants, like their daughter being killed in an accident or a child getting a brain tumor. Nobody wants that, and so the idea of it being something that was intended, it's hard for you to wrap your thoughts around that because you think no one would want that. But when you stand back a little bit and you understand the big picture, and you understand the eternalness of your being, then it's easier sometimes to be able to understand that often, in fact, always from your non-physical standpoint, as you're making the decision to come into this body, you've got the big picture in mind, where once you get here, you tend to focus, as other humans do, on a smaller picture. So that's the first thing that we want to say to you. So you create your own reality. Everyone does. But what is this power of influence? Well, we would like to say, and we're saying it not just for the first time for your ears, but the first time for anybody's ears. The path of least resistance is the greatest power of influence that is. What your inner being knows and what it's collected from you, and the energy that's flowing as a result of that strong point of attraction. If you get a sense of law of attraction and how it responds to a vibration, can you imagine how strong an attraction is to a vibration that holds no resistance? That's why the path of least resistance is so powerful, and that absolute desire is always being satisfied. So Esther has come to understand that the laws of the universe are powerful and accurate. Like the law of gravity, she wants to go with the flow of it. She doesn't jump off buildings and expect to be an exception. She knows that if she jumps off a building, that she's not going to be an exception, and that the law is going to respond to her as the law of gravity responds to all things. And the law of attraction is like that too. The law of attraction is responding to vibration. But humans want to, these are these piles that we were talking about, they want to put Republicans in one pile and Democrats in another, and depending upon which pile they're in, they decide which pile's the good one and which pile's the bad one. They want to put things in different piles, and they want to put death in the bad pile and not dying in the good pile, which is really weird since everyone knows they're going to die. Everyone knows there is no death, but everyone knows they're going to have that experience. And so you sort of scramble yourselves. You put yourself in a position where you don't really allow yourself to be under the true influence of who you are. What we just said to you is that sometimes people are so in alignment with their powerful intention that even though they had an earlier than people wanted them to death experience, it doesn't mean that something went wrong. It can mean that something went very right. But that makes you unsteady because you don't want people that you care about to be on their way to something that you don't want. And we get that. But it is the reason that we want so much for you to become the eternal beings that you are, because until you become one with the idea, with the understanding of your eternal nature, you're always going to be on that resistant edge of dreading something or fearing something. And there's so much influence about that often you do block your well-being by worrying about its opposite. The first conversation that we had with Jerry and Esther about this, they were in Buffalo, New York. And Esther turned on the television, and there was a program about the school system in Buffalo. And they had a program revolving around driver's education. And for one full week, the entire school played this game of death and the highway. And students were assigned, you will continue to live, you will be killed in an accident, you will be crippled and maimed. And they filled the field house with broken cars that they dragged in from different junkyards that had been involved in accidents so that the children could walk around and see the damage that could be done to cars. And then they showed them films and all kinds of things, warning them against drunk driving, drinking while driving. So Esther was uncomfortable as she was watching it, and then we began to pipe in, and we said, you see what's happening here is that there's an activation of what is not wanted that is happening. They took it further. They had funerals for the people that died. The parents were assigned to send out announcements. People actually attended the funerals. They made this whole thing as real as they could make it because they believed incorrectly that by making people think powerfully about what they do not want, that somehow they will be able to hold what they do not want apart. And that's the point that you're making with us here. When you push against what you don't want, you become a vibrational match to the very thing that you're pushing against. The opposite is what you're wanting to reach for. And of course, you want to know that you don't want that. Of course. We're not encouraging you to encourage the idea of your children drinking and driving and getting into accidents. That's not at all what we're talking about. We're just saying that the harder you push against things, you get what you think about whether you want it or not. And that's the point of your question. Was I thinking about something so much that I caused it in another? And the answer to that is, while your influence can be strong, and influence is a factor, everyone does create their own reality. Everyone creates their own reality. And we're answering your question specifically. This was something that the two of you cooked up. In fact, more of you than the two of you cooked it up, knowing the value that it would bring to you. So, Esther had an experience last week or two, and we're going to talk about it, even though Esther was reluctant for us to talk about it because it involves people that she loves that are here in this room with her, who travel with her, that go from city to city. But a few weeks ago, they were in San Diego, and then the next week they were in another city, Chicago or somewhere, and when they got there, one of the screens was not with them. That left it in the last city. Well, now, these are very reliable people. They don't leave things behind, but they left that behind. And Esther was in San Diego. She has a house there, and so she was there. And so she thought, no problem, we'll gather up the screen and we'll ship it out. But it wasn't fun to gather up the screen. It's really long, doesn't fit in any vehicle, and really heavy, and really awkward, and annoying, really. And so she didn't have strong negative thought about it, but she was frustrated about it, and pointed about it, and didn't give really much more thought to it than that. But she's been playing this game that we talked about staying satisfied. And here she was, dissatisfied, and really not doing anything about it. So she felt the dissatisfaction, and didn't do anything about bringing herself back into satisfaction. She could have. So easy to acknowledge the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of things that these guys do perfectly, as compared to one little thing in all this time that it's gone wrong. It would have been really easy to do. She just didn't do it. Instead, she got focused on the gathering it up and who's going to do it and how they're going to take it. And so it was very mild, sort of like the kind of thoughts that you're thinking about in comparison to the well-being that you intend. Really mild, not a big deal. And then she wanted them to decide. She took it a little further, far past satisfaction, into let's wrestle this to the ground and kill it. I want you guys to figure out who's in charge of not leaving things behind. So get together and decide who you're going to assign to be the one that's in trouble when it happens. It's basically what she was saying. It's not what she said, but it's kind of what she meant. I want someone to hold responsible for this. And then she thought, I actually hold John responsible. He's the one that drives the truck. I pick John. Nobody else would pick John, but Esther picked John. She thought that John should be the one that looks in the truck. How do you miss a big frickin' screen? Really, John, really? There she got with it. Now, she didn't need to go there, and it wasn't that painful. It wasn't anger. It wasn't, I want to kill myself. It wasn't, things have gone terribly wrong. It was just, in comparison with satisfaction, certainly not satisfaction. And so then a few days later, she gets a text from John. The van isn't running well. It's an acceleration problem, which really scared Esther because things are on that van that matter. And it was on its way to another city, and it was maybe broken down, which meant, can we buy a new one? Not in time. Do we rent a U-Haul? What do we do? How are we going to get that stuff to where it needs to be? In other words, now she's pretty far into an uncomfortable feeling. So she said, well, let's make a plan B, start thinking about what we might do otherwise, bringing herself back into some alignment. And then she got a call a day later that the Mercedes dealership had the Sprinter van, and they knew what the problem was. John had put the wrong fuel in it. Brilliant John. Really. This is a very clever, efficient, effective person who has been taking things from city to city successfully for a long time. Well, Esther just began to laugh because it did not miss her attention that she'd been focusing on a mistake, had assigned it to a person who the last person on the planet that would ever want to make a mistake she'd assigned it to, and sort of inspired him to ineptness for a moment. So when you say, so did Esther create in his reality? No. She sort of met him there. He was already a little unstable because of what had happened. She didn't do anything to diffuse it. She had not done anything to diffuse the resistance. In fact, what she did encouraged the resistance to the point that she had a thought turn into a thing that let her know she'd encouraged the resistance. You see what we're getting at? Of course. Everyone influences everyone. Your inner being influences you to the best of you, and sometimes you're under that other influence where you're influencing someone maybe not to the best. But in all cases, everyone creates their own reality. Everyone does. But isn't it nice to know that you can be an uplifter or a detractor, that you can enhance someone's experience or detract from it, that your satisfaction and how you affect others go hand in hand, that you can't feel bad and be of value to the world, and you can't feel good and be of detriment to the world? Don't you like to know what your power of influence is? Not your responsibility. We're not assigning responsibility. We're assigning awareness. We encourage you to be aware, and then to dance the dance with others and let others create their own reality, and you do the very best that you can do, and that's what that's all about.
And you absolutely nailed it with responsibility, because I did feel responsible for what happened. So thank you.
It's diffused a lot, isn't it?
It is.
So maybe you've crossed over into some strong relief, and it won't be long before you cross right over into satisfaction. And when you do, then it really picks up speed. Then what you really want kicks into high gear, and the evidence of it is so